Good morning, everyone. So this is a walkthrough of YoYo. YoYo is our Winnebago Spirit. It is a newer RV and has very little blemishes. There's a little bit of love, but very little blemishes. It is a Winnebago Spirit and it is 31 feet. And we're going to start a walkthrough showing you the ins and outs of all the buttons and everything you need to know so that you can be prepared for your trip. First and foremost, you'll walk and see that it is just a Ford truck. It is an E450 Super Duty truck, and then the RV is built on the back of it. What that means to you is much of everything that you see in the vehicle is going to look like every vehicle that you've ever driven, every rental car that you've ever driven. There's not much differences just because you're driving an RV that everything's going to look foreign. It also means that the E450 truck drives very similar than what you've other things you've driven. I kind of describe it as driving a little bit more like a U-Haul bus, or excuse me, like a U-Haul, but a Class A drives a little bit more like a bus. So there's a little bit higher of a learning curve. So this drives like a U-Haul, very similar to a truck. You just have to worry about the length of the vehicle because that behind of the RV, whenever you make turns, does swing a very far way out to the left and right. And you always have to make sure that you're pulling farther ahead than you would think, making sure that you know that you're going to go into the opposite lanes. You're not making these really tight corners, and that you have absolutely no get up and go. So you need to make sure that you have full clearance, that there's no cars coming, because you ain't going anywhere fast and you don't want to cut anybody off. Stepping into the vehicle, you'll see that there are maybe a couple things that are different. We do have our automatic mirrors up here on the driver's side door. It's the same as before. You're just going to switch them from left to right. Put it in the middle if you don't want to do anything, but left, and you would push the arrows in order to adjust them. This is actually something new I learned, and we tested it out. This is a heater for the mirrors. One of the previous renters asked me what that button was, and sometimes I'm learning too, and I didn't know. It's a heater for the mirror. Now I know. This RV has a foot brake that you would push with your foot, obviously with your left foot. And then there is a hand release for that brake release. It is a black handle that if you reach your fingers a little bit back here, you could then release it. And with this RV, we don't have the problem, but when people start grabbing here on the plastic, this whole section breaks off and there's little gaps. So just be careful, you're always grabbing this black handle that's back behind it. We hope that you never need to know where the hood release is, but it's right there where everyone else is. It is important with this particular vehicle that we do keep the brake on because the slides are operated by the brake on and the truck on. And so anytime you want to open and close the slides, you do have to have the brake on and the truck on. Looking at the dash itself, again, it looks very similar. You're going to see, your gas or miles to empty. Everything looks the same. This particular vehicle does have a tire pressure monitoring system, and I almost wish that it doesn't. I feel like it causes more problems than good, but it is nice to see that there are tire pressures here. What I have found with a lot of these tire pressure monitoring systems is that they glitch all the time. It's not as the science or the electronics or the capabilities aren't as good in your vehicle at home. And I find that there's a lot of times that there's a little explanation point that puts a little error on your screen. And I just want to really clearly say, if it's supposed to be 76 or 72 or whatever it's supposed to be, and it says 65 or 55, that definitely means that your tire is low and you want to do something about it. But if it says dash or 0, that means that tire pressure monitoring system is not working correctly, and maybe you need to check to make sure things are okay, but it's not an absolute alarm. If you're ever wondering what the tire pressures are supposed to be, there is a sticker here on the door. It does say that Looks like they both should be at 75. And when the tires get start getting warmer, they might start at that 72. There's been times in the past where I'm like, oh, it's at 70. By the time I got to the gas station or to the air to put the air in the tire was at 75. So it's definitely a suggested, keep it at that 75, around 75. The dash itself is very self-explanatory. One thing I always like to say is in a Class C, these air conditioning vents are huge, and this truck is very powerful. If you have it in the max AC and cool and high, and you point these vents to the back of the RV, it's gonna get some good airflow to your guests that are in the back. Our family, we have only driven with the generator on one or two or three times out of the hundreds of trips that we've done, and we find that this AC gets to the guests. But our guests feel that it gets a little hot back there and they want to turn on the generator in order to turn on the air conditioning. So that's to each their own. After after I hand you the keys, you do with what you want. But I just want to let you know, high max AC, cool high, these pointed to the back, you should be good. A lot of people wonder what this battery boost is. The battery boost is to just show you that the batteries work in tandem. You have a battery in your truck, and you also have two batteries in your house. So if for some odd reason you left your lights on and the truck battery died, it's not the end of the world. You can push this battery boost button as you're turning the key in order to start the car. And it's basically like jumping your car with jumper cables, but you're jumping it from the batteries in the back. And also, just while we're talking about that, if you let your house batteries die, the way to fix that would be to turn on your truck and let your truck battery or let your truck charge those house batteries just enough so that you can get that generator turned on, and so that generator has a spark, and then you could then turn on the generator to charge your house batteries. So the batteries work both ways. This vehicle does have a nice little phone thing. In the Florida heat, I find that it's not so reliable. When I got in the car this morning, this phone thing had like fallen down and it was down here. So just know it could fall down, and just word of caution. This is a center console. You'll see that it does have a rear view camera as well as side view cameras. So when you turn on your turn signal, I now have the turn signal on to the right. It's gonna show you the camera on your right-hand side for your blind spot. Then I'm gonna turn it to the left, and that's gonna show you your left-hand blind spot. And then when you put the truck into reverse, it's going to show you the rear view camera. I find that at night that those cameras are not so great, so it's always good to have that backup so that you're making sure that you're not hitting anything. And then this center console does have Bluetooth options. You can go to the settings and Bluetooth, and then your Bluetooth connection, it's on. Push on that pairing button, and then you're gonna look into the app on your phone, and it's like XLV something something something. They have all different numbers, and then it's gonna ask you, does this number match the number that's on your phone? And it's connected via Bluetooth. But just connecting it via Bluetooth, it only has your sound coming out of the speakers, but your map will not be on that screen. If you want to see your Waze map or your Apple Maps on this screen, you need to hardwire to the system, and that's over here. This one here, not the one that is right underneath the console, but this one all the way over here is the one that you'll connect to with your phone cable that will put your maps up on the screen. And like it looks like CarPlay, and it has I think it is CarPlay, and it has like my Spotify and my maps and whatever on the screen there. In here, obviously, we have our passenger airbag. We leave that on. I don't even like that it has an option to turn that off. And then there's, all sorts of other storage space, glove box, and things like that. So just walking by through all the cabinets down the side of YoYo, this first one is actually a dummy cabinet. There's nothing in it. I think maybe that's the windshield wiper fluid and maybe provides you access. But other than that, there's nothing in there. The next one is your generator. And the generator, it's an Onan 4000 generator. That's a pretty standard generator for RVs. And the operation for this generator, everything is inside. And so for the most part, I hope that no guest has to come outside to this cabinet to do anything with the generators. You're gonna do everything, the start and the stop and everything inside. Unfortunately, what we find is that generators are kind of finicky. They are not meant to operate in these extreme heats. There's temperature sensors in them and they shut off. And unfortunately, we do find that we're troubleshooting generators with guests more than what we would like. The standard is that you do generator services every 150 hours. We do them about every 100 hours because we want to make sure that our guests don't have to deal with anything. But I still sometimes have to refer to this outside cabinet just to kind of show you some easy things. You know, what you do have these open and close things here. I'm just going to open them and take this cabinet off. You open it and lift it up, and it kind of just has to like fall out the bottom once you have it in the correct open position here. Not going to really walk through troubleshooting steps and anything that's going to done. Just wanted to show you what the inside of this looks like and show you some very simple things so that when I'm talking to you on the phone because maybe your generator's not working, it's really simple. The first question is I'm going to ask is the breaker in the forward position? It's actually behind this hose and there's a little switch back here. If it's in the forward position, then that's in the correct position. If you're running solely off of the generator, the generators don't provide as much power as you think that they might. And if you're gonna run the microwave plus a hair dryer plus something else all at the same time, there's a good possibility you're going to overload this generator and it will need to be reset. There are breakers inside, but depending on how much you overloaded it, this breaker outside can trip as well. And so I always want for you to call me. I never want for you to try to figure things out yourself. But that's a really simple thing that when you call me and you say that you don't have the proper power, I'm going to direct you to this outside cabinet. You already know how to take the cabinet door off and you already know where the breaker is, and that's great. Then the next things that I might ask you is I would want you to start the generator on the outside. And if it shuts off because there's some sort of problem, there's going to be some error codes that we can get off of this light right here. And I'm not sure why, but some guests don't understand what I mean by this light and that there's going to be error codes. They're looking for like a error code 52, when in reality what's going to happen is I'm going to tell you how to get that error code, and that light's going to go blink, 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 pause, blink, 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 pause, blink, blink, blink. And that means that it's error code 33, and I just made that code up. And then I can actually help you maybe fix the problem. There are a couple of things that maybe I might direct you to do, and then there's other things where maybe we need a technician. I've sent technicians out all the time. It really depends on your location and you know your duration of each stop and your schedule and a whole bunch of things. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that you're covered and you're taken care of. If we're ever in this outside cabinet, the big thing I want to tell you is that the generator does not want to operate without this door on. So anytime you think that you've done whatever you want to do and now you're good to go, make sure you get this door back on correctly and give it a good jiggle so that you make sure that it's on, because we've had these generator doors fall off as they're driving down the road, and then it's a really expensive door, which is crazy. But then the generator doesn't want to run because it doesn't have the proper air circulation. So I'm going to push stop right now in the video and put it back on correctly. So we did finally get that door on there for the generator. And just to make a good point, the generator runs off of the gasoline in the vehicle. And if your gasoline in the vehicle gets below a quarter of a tank, your generator will actually shut off. So if you're expecting to use the generator in the campground, make sure you go into the campground with a full tank of gas. Now the generator doesn't use a lot of gasoline. It uses a little, so it's not like in one day you're going to use a full tank of gas, but it does shut off at a quarter of a tank. This next cabinet is your electrical cabinet. We're gonna go back and get another surge protector. But one thing that's very specific about this particular RV, about YoYo, is that if you would like to get power from the generator, it has to be plugged into itself. So this is the extension cable here. Normally you would have that unplugged and you would plug that into the campground pole that's over there. But in order to get power from the generator, you want to plug it into itself. So if you ever think that you have your generator on and you still don't have power in the RV, that's going to be the number one, solution, is to make sure it's plugged into itself. Now, I always say, make sure you have a surge protector. Campground electricity is really dirty, and so we always make sure we have a surge protector. YoYo is a 30 amp RV, and what that means is that it requires 30 amps in order to work properly, in order for the AC unit to work, for the microwave to work, everything inside to work. So people have asked what the electricity, if you have a 50 amp campground, goody gumdrops, that's awesome. You're welcome to plug a adapter up to the campground to convert it from 50 down to 30, and then you can put your surge protector into that, and then you can plug your RV into the surge protector. We do not put adapters into the RVs for every RV. It's something that we want you to ask for, so please plan ahead and know what power you need at that campground. First and foremost, I did go and grab the surge protector for this particular RV that you always should use. I'm going to throw that in the cabinet so that we make sure that we have it, so that we make sure that the guests in the RV are covered. And then this particular guest mentioned that one of the campgrounds, they're going to be at a 50 amp connection. So I went and grabbed a 50 amp adapter. So this 50 amp adapter we would plug into the campground, then we would plug the surge protector into here, then we would plug the electric cable into that, and then we would be good. So I'm going to put this also in this back cabinet here, so that we have it. So there are 3 different ways that water goes into the RV itself. We have the tank fill, which is on the far right. We have the black tank flush is in the middle, and the city fill on the left. So let me talk about the 3 different ways of what that does. So when I tried to make all the RVs go out with a full tank of water. So in order to do that, I will hook my hose up to the tank fill, and that will fill the tank. And you can see a sensor on the inside that tells you the level of the tank. The next option is when you get to the campground, you might want to hook the hose up to the city fill. So with the city fill, you're getting water from the campground spigot going directly into the RV, and it bypasses the water tank, and it basically gives you an endless supply of water. But I do want to point out that although you have an endless supply of water, you do only have a limited size of your gray tank. So you do still have to monitor how full your gray tank is, or your black tank for that matter, even though you're hooked up to city fill. Our family, we tend to use the water from the water tank and fill it back up, and use it and fill it back up. And the biggest reason why is we find that there's always water dripping here, or always water dripping at the campground. And I would rather see water dripping for about 20 minutes while I'm filling the tank, rather than dripping for the 3 days that we're at the campground. That's for us. Now your hose is in this back cabinet. And you'll see that there's a water pressure regulator on this hose. All the rest of our RVs have an orange ring for the water pressure regulator. This one just happens to be blue. We just replaced it. One of the guests actually left it at a previous campground, noticed that it was missing on the next campground. They were at a high pressure campground, so they purchased one. So they made sure that the pipes were protected. These pipes are really little plastic pipes. So at some campgrounds, the water pressure is so powerful, it could totally bust through those pipes. So the water is the water hose is in the back. So the third way to put water in is this black tank flush. The black tank flush is something that I recommend to do every 2 or 3 times that you dump. The reality is that there's a fine balance between solids and liquids in the black tank. And so if you use too much toilet paper and not enough water, you could end up with a mound of icky stuff in the bottom of your black tank. So when you go to hook up your sewer lines in order to dump the tanks, it could be that black tank flush would be very important. So first and foremost, how do you hook up the sewer lines? So in YoYo, this hose is actually at the other side of the RV in the bottom cabinet. I went and got it. It's down there in the cabinet that's open. So I went and got it, brought it over here, and you'll see underneath the RV, there's a little black circle pipe that comes out. It has a label saying black waste tank drain, gray waste drain. You would hook this hose, take that black cap off, hook this hose up to there, and then this other end that has a clear elbow on it goes into the ground. I always want to make sure that hose is connected properly before I start doing anything, so we don't have any accidents. And then underneath this RV here where it says black waste tank drain, there's a little handle. Might be hard to see with the camera here, but there's a little black handle and a gray handle. So you would pull the black handle just a little bit so that you can make sure that the flow is flowing pretty good. Once you make sure that there's nothing escaping, pull the handle the full way out. Then when you're done dumping the black tank, then you would close the black tank valve and pull the gray tank valve. And the gray tank is actually the soapy water from your sink and your shower, and that in a sense cleans out that whole icky line. Now if you were to use the black tank flush, you would have it all hooked up and you would have that black handle in the open position, so it allows for everything to drain. You would hook your water hose up to that black tank flush, and in a sense what it's doing is it's spraying water on top of your gray tank, on top of your black tank, so that it can help with the swooshing and getting everything out of your black tank. Make sure that the black tank valve is open. Now some people think that you can leave the gray handle and the black handle in the open position while you're at the campground. There are many RVers that's what they do. I just feel that leaves you open for smells coming from the gray tank or smells coming from the black tank that keep it from keeping all the smells away. So we leave those handles closed. This next cabinet here is your propane. So if you were to fill the propane, this is where you would direct them. You would have to line this area up here in order for them to fill it. But when you fill propane at a gas station or an Ace Hardware, they do all the work themselves. You just have to direct them to this spot. Next up, we have our gasoline. This is regular, everyday, inexpensive gasoline that's actually kind of expensive right now, but you can just use regular gasoline. When you put this in here, sometimes I find that with the RVs, it won't stay connected and won't stay clicked into the on position. And I find if you pull it out a little bit, that you can keep it then clicked into the on position. And just to make note, if your gasoline ever ends at 0, like let's say you poured exactly $100 or exactly $125, you didn't just do a really cool thing. Most often than not, the gas station has blocked a certain amount of maximum gas pump amount, and they've stopped it, stopped the tank, and you just have to take everything out, plug it back into the gas, and then put it back, put your card in again, and start all over again. And then you'll get a little bit more gasoline put in there all the way to the end. It is, I believe, a 55-gallon drum. It's really got a huge gas tank. So looking into the back of YoYo's cabinet, one of the things we found is what I call the bra for the vehicle itself. This is a cover that goes on the outside of the truck, and it keeps the windows all shaded to keep the heat from coming into the RV. You'll notice on the corners here, there is a little bit of a magnet. See how they don't even want to come apart. There is a magnet that goes on the outside of the vehicle by the door. There is a little section here that goes around the side view mirrors. So this sort of fits around the front of the vehicle. Especially, it doesn't matter what the weather is. I would always recommend putting this up when you get into your spot to really prevent some hot or cold from coming in. And it does provide a good amount of privacy as well. Then next you'll see that there is some Big Mac Daddy chairs. The chairs aren't necessarily recommended or always going to be in the RV. We have a bunch of chairs that are placed throughout the RVs, but they get moved around a lot. We do recommend that if you are traveling from your house or you're going to the house to load up, to just pack your own chairs. But you don't necessarily need to go buy chairs. If you just let me know and you say, hey, can we get 3 chairs? There's a good possibility I have chairs that I can grab and make sure that they're here. We just don't guarantee those chairs. And you'll see in YoYo and with all of the RVs, we do provide manual leveling blocks in the back. That's these orange blocks. There's actually some more underneath the chairs. And those blocks are to level the RV. In the Class C's, you don't need to stabilize the RV. The RV doesn't shake as you're walking like this, but it will potentially, depending on your campground, be level, whether it be side to side or front to back. And the fridge really wants to be level. So in YoYo, unfortunately, that automatic leveler is broken. We have taken it out of the listing, but sometimes people think that it's there. So we are going to use these manual blocks in YoYo. This RV won't rattle as you're walking, but you do need for the vehicle to be level, whether it be left to right or front to back. The refrigerator will not work properly if it's not level, and you'll find that your fridge isn't getting to temperature or not working at all. So you have to level your RV. So these are kind of like little Lincoln logs. So you would put one and then one next to it and then put a third one on top to interlink it and to lock it together. Then you would put it underneath a tire and just drive up on it. So a lot of people think with those back tires that you need to put blocks under both the tires. I don't think that it's needed, but I think it's a good added measure. It really depends on how level you need to get the vehicle and how many blocks you need. So if your RV is completely unlevel side to side, you would need to put some blocks on both the front tire and the back tire. And so you may not have enough blocks left to do the inside back tire. And again, if it's really unlevel forward to back, again, you might need to put them on the 2 front tires or the 2 back tires. Sometimes it's been so unlevel that I had to do 1, 2, 3 blocks on the bottom, 1, 2 interlocking on top, and then a third one interlocking on top of that one, in order to give it even higher thing to go up on. And unfortunately, the auto leveler in YoYo doesn't work, and this is the backup. But unfortunately, those levelers are just so finicky, and I provide these backups in all of the RVs. So there is a hitch on the back of our RVs, and we do require for you to let us know if you are towing something, just so we can describe what the insurance that you provided, that was provided to you or you paid for by the reservation, what the insurance covers and what it doesn't. So if you let me know that you're towing something, we'll have that conversation, and there'll be something that you sign off on so that I know that it is being towed. There is a beautiful ladder on the back of an RV, and there's absolutely no reason to go up onto the roof of the RV. It's just really dangerous. Then in this next cabinet, you have an outdoor rug that's really nice to keep things inside kind of tidy. Looks like there's some more chairs down there. This cabinet is where that Stinky Slinky came out of. This next one has, looks like some jumper cables and just some extra safety stuff. This next one should be empty. Let's see. Ish. empty-ish. There is some plugs on the outside. Just be very careful with what you plug into them. I find that they don't provide the same amount of power that a regular household outlet like might use. So just be careful of what you plug into them. And that is a cable adapter that I haven't seen at campgrounds for a very long time. And that's the back of the fridge here. For YoYo, I find that in order to close it, sometimes if you don't get it into the closed position, you have to maybe lift up this handle and open it in order to open and close, in order to get it locked. And on the key ring, there are different keys. Actually, I think these ones have a black key that's for the door and a gray key that's for the cabinets. Into the RV, I believe that YoYo has one of the lowest steps. So if you're looking for somebody that maybe has some mobility concerns, I think YoYo has one of the lowest steps. There's also a handle that's a really good handle to get a grip on pulling inside. And then, although I never recommend it, you can pull on this too, and this is anchored into the RV. But I don't like people pulling on this because I feel like it might break it. So looking at the stuff by the door, we do have our auto leveler here that I've already told you is not working. So just ignore it or do a little weeping if you have your manual leveling blocks and, you know, get mad at Erica or something. I don't know, but this does not work. You do have your awning operations here. We have an on and an off position, and sometimes when I go to operate it, I just push the out. Like, why is it not working? And I notice that I don't have it actually on. And then I'm gonna push the out button, and you have to understand, we have 20 different RVs that every single one is operating differently. I'm not positive you have to have the truck on or off. The truck is currently on, so let's see if it goes out. I'm just gonna push the out button here, and look, it's not going out. So my guest here is gonna turn off the truck so that we could show the awning working properly. Is the truck off? Yeah. So now I'm gonna push the out button, and lo and behold, the awning opens. So the awning opens very slowly. It gets to the out position, and then some people like to leave their awnings open. There are some really cool mechanisms with newer RVs that there's little movement and wind sensors that if it senses wind, it's actually going to automatically close it itself. This one does go to an out position and it does stop. So it's stopped in that position. So this is what it looks like when it's open. But you can see, even here sitting in storage, there's a little bit of a wobble with the wind. I'd say right now is probably fine. But here in Florida, we get huge gusts of winds and storms all the time. Never leave the awning open if you're not literally outside enjoying it. Never leave the RV with the awning open. I don't care what your neighbor did or what your friend said. You want to protect you and your security deposit because these awnings are not covered under your standard insurance. So unless you got that interior protection package, that's an additional charge, your insurance that you purchase is collision insurance. So if anything happens to this awning, it's actually coming out of your security deposit. And I can tell you that one set of arms is about $900 with about $500 to install it. And so there goes your security deposit. Awnings, a lot of owners will actually deactivate them, and I choose to trust you and to charge you if there's an oopsies. Last, there is an on and off button here for that awning. And this coach battery, this is an all on or an all off when it comes to this RV. So just make sure you're most likely just gonna leave it in the on position. The only reason why you should turn it off is if maybe you're driving to a destination, staying in a hotel for 3 or 4 days, you've taken everything out of the RV and you just wanna save the battery, you've taken everything out of the RV, including the fridge, and you just wanna save the battery, you can turn it off. And then at least it will save that battery when you get back. Some safety things, we do have a fire extinguisher that's by the door. Your breakers and your fuses are also right by the door. And your CO2 alarm is underneath the fridge. Sometimes I find that the CO2 alarm beeps and it needs to be reset. We recently had an older RV that the alarm was saying it needed to be replaced. So anytime something is weird, just let me know and we can work through and figure out what's going on. Also, since I'm down on the ground, we'll talk about it later, but the air conditioning comes out from the ceiling, but your furnace comes out from heater vents on the floor. So first and foremost, you have the bed here. If you're not converting it for the bed, there are seat belts in here. So in order to get the seat belts, you kind of would, put your hand down here in the hole and just pull out the seat belts that you need. You can see back behind there, maybe all of the seat belts are there. This is kind of a bottomless pit and things get lost down there all the time. So we really try to get on our cleaning crew to make sure that it stays clean back there, but things fall down there all the time. So obviously make sure you pull out those seat belts. Right now you'll see that the cab area, the head portion is taken out. It's actually sitting right here. This has a piece of wood in it. It's actually really heavy. So you would take this and put it in that position here. And then once you do that, you'll see that there are these little latches. This is where the ladder hooks in. That ladder is actually up here right now, over there in the bed. So you would hook that ladder into this portion and the ladder sits right here. Looking at the TV, first and foremost, let's see if they're there. This is where the remote should be. So yes, there is a basket up here in the bed and the remotes are here. This TV is here, and if you put your hand underneath it, oh, I just turned it on. If you put your hand underneath it, you can just pull this TV out so that it faces the living area. YoYo does have a DVD player. That's not common in other RVs. There is a DVD player, and if I remember correctly, one of those wires are kind of a fancy HDMI that people have said that they've hooked up their like Xbox to. Maybe that's the one that's in the back of the DVD player. Some people are counting on this dinette bed, this dinette as a bed. So if you were to do that, you would loosen that little dial right there, and you're gonna lift this whole table out, including that base. It takes a little bit of an oomph. It's you're not gonna break it, I don't think. It just takes some strength to pull this out. Then you would turn it upside down, take that pole out, and this table is sitting on this ledge right here. And I just want to point out what may be obvious to me, but not obvious to other people. When you're using this bed, this one is actually a full-size bed, and it can fit, maybe a not 6'2" person. But it is actually a full-size bed. But when you're sleeping in it, don't sit here on this edge here in the center and put your shoes on with your full weight in one spot. Maybe sit over here on the side to put your shoes on, but when you lay in bed, you're going to distribute your weight throughout. And when you get that lower down into a bed, the cushions actually will kind of maneuver down to cover that space. All RVs are a little bit different when it comes to seating arrangements. Some RVs will not let you sit backwards, so you need to figure out where your seat belts are. The legal requirements are that anybody over the age of 12 is seatbelted in the RV. You would lift up these cushions, and in that cabinet, you would pull out whatever seatbelts you need and sit people accordingly. Now, again, all RVs are different, but YoYo does have one car seat over the shoulder or over the car seat forward facing adaptery thingy there on the ground. That's so that you can make sure that when your car seat is in here, it's not flying forward. Now, if you are installing a car seat in here, I just want to point out that it's not the same as in your car. In your car, you're going to pull out the seatbelt until it locks. You're going to put it through the car seat. Then you're going to pull it the opposite way. The seatbelt's already locked, and you're going to get that car seat locked into position, and it is not going to move. That is not the same here. And these are kind of like airline seatbelts. And so if you wiggle from side to side, you're going to make that seatbelt bigger and bigger and bigger. So with that said, I always recommend, if you're putting a car seat in here, to take this cushion out and to put the car seat right on the wood. Then if a kid is wiggling back and forth, you don't have the cushion to contend with, and it's not making it looser. Some little tips and tricks. And just when you're in inside the vehicle, what you're looking at is projectile objects. Don't put your Keurig coffee pot on the counter or some big heavy thing on the counter, because when you push on the brakes, it's gonna fly. If you have arts and crafts or computers on the table and you hit on the brakes, they're gonna fly off the table. So just be careful. Underneath the table here, you do have some USBs and some outlets. Just be mindful that that unless the generator is on while you're driving down the road, the TV will not work and none of the outlets will work either. All you have is the lights. In some RVs, the USBs work. They're not attached to the generator power. They're attached to the car or the battery, but most of the RVs, the USBs don't work. So in order to have the power to the TV or to the outlets or to the air conditioning or microwave, you would have to have the generator running while you're driving or proper power. So YoYo has a glass cover to the stove. It is not a glass top stove. You do need to open it completely up into the open position. Don't put anything on top of that stovetop. We have seen people, putting things on top and it vibrates and breaks. Just be careful. Just be very sensitive with those. When you're starting the stove, and I can't do it with two hands, so maybe my guest here, helper, might help me as I'm lighting it to show you. But assuming that the gas is on, I'm going to push this into the light position, and we'll say light. And then with my left hand that I have operating the phone, I'm going to click this little burner thing. And this is the spark in order to spark that stovetop in order to turn it on. I can't do it with two hands. I'm going to get that turned on and start the video again. So we now have the stovetop on. It did take a couple of clicks. Depending on how long it's been since the gas has been used, it may take a little bit more time for the gas to fill in the lines, but it does take two hands. One to push this in the light position and one to turn that burner clicky on. Now, if you're going to light the oven, it's the same thing. This one does help you out a little bit. It says pilot. So when you turn this into the pilot position and you're pushing it in, and then with your left hand, you're clicking that clicker, what's happening is that you actually are trying to light the pilot that's all the way under the shelf, all the way in the back. Just that little bitty blue pilot light. And as soon as that little bitty blue pilot light stays lit, then you can turn the oven into the on position and the whole oven will go floop and light up. A lot of people feel like that when they're trying to turn on the oven, that it's actually going to light the whole entire oven itself, when all you're lighting initially is that pilot. So just make sure this particular RV does not have lights showing you that the propane and the stovetop is on. So anytime you operate the stove, just make sure that you have them in the off position. They do click into the off position, but we actually had a guest yesterday that let me know that when his kids were walking around in the RV, they bumped the stovetop and actually turned the oven on, or turned the stovetop on. And so, they just, he saw as he was driving at the corner, the light on, and he could tell him, "You turned on the oven!" And he stopped and got it turned off quickly. This one doesn't have the light that makes it that easy, so you just want to make sure it's in the locked position. So in the cabinets, there are some miscellaneous things. There's cups and some bowls and some things. Let's see. We have a Mr. Coffee Pot down here. So your pots and pans are underneath the stove or underneath the oven. And then up above the sink, you have plates and cups and other things. So just to full disclosure, anytime you see disposable cups and disposable plates, those are things left by previous guests, and we figure we might as well leave them there. There's no reason to throw them away because the next renter is going to want them as well. But those are not something that we provide. I did not guarantee that each one of those cups are sterilized. So full disclosure, whoever, depending on who you are, maybe you'll use them, maybe you won't. We just leave them there so you have them. Nothing, absolutely nothing goes down the sink except for water. So you do have a strainer that you can put in there in order to hold things. I also will put this in there too, to totally close it off. You want to make sure nothing goes down this drain, so that you don't have any problems in the pipes getting things backed up. Now, just to kind of talk about the sensors for the tanks, they're up here on this main panel, but it's not a perfect science. So when you're looking on this main panel, you'll see that there's all these buttons. The first one is LPG, that says it's 2/3. And here in Florida, if I was to take this RV to go get filled, the propane filled, they're not going to fill it up all the way. There's going to be a little bit because they leave some for expansion. Then the next one, we have battery. It's showing you that it's full. It's actually lying to you in a way. That's actually showing you that the generator is on, and it's showing you the power coming from the generator. The next one is the fresh water. So that one is 2/3. Most likely what happened is it was at full at one point in time, and when the cleaning crew came and did the cleaning, they probably used some water for the shower and the sink that you put a little bit down. Then the next one is the black tank, showing that it's empty, and the gray tank showing that it's empty. Those sensors don't always tell the truth, and so the common sense is when you're using and you're doing dishes, if the water's not going down the drain, you have one of two problems. One problem is that you've clogged it. Luckily, we've never had that happen, knock on wood. Most likely it's because your gray tank is full and the water just won't go down the drain, whether it be in the shower or in the sink. So your fridge, I would love to provide every renter with a cold fridge upon arrival, but that's just not possible. We get here in the morning and there's no way to leave everything powered all night so that these are always plugged in. So when you get your RV, there's a good possibility that your fridge is going to be warm. So first and foremost, do not put cold food into a hot fridge. These temperature sensors are really sensitive. And if you put a bag of spaghetti sauce that was frozen that you made at home getting ready for your trip, you put it in the top shelf here, there's a possibility that the thermostat's going to read the coldness of that spaghetti and not even turn on the fridge to get cold until that spaghetti sauce thaws, and now everything else in your fridge is rotten. So looking at the controls, we have an on and off button, so it's now on. And this mode, I want to show you kind of what this is. So when it shows you auto and that A, and then there's a little electrical outlet underneath it, the auto means that it's going to switch back and forth between electric and gas. So showing you what the gas looks like, that's all electric, that's all gas, and if you leave it in the auto, it will go back and forth. Then you have these lights over here that are going to be the temperature of the fridge itself. Okay, so here's your main controls for the whole RV here. We already have the slides open, and so those are in the out position. So here's where they're operating, in, out. It's really easy. One thing again to note, you need to have your parking brake on and the truck on to for those to work. Then we have our holding tank heaters here. This is if you're in the snow. So you're not using that. We don't allow our RVs to go to the snow. Then we have our inverter control. This inverter, I feel like, is another finicky item in the RV. We have 20 RVs and only 2 of them that have inverters, and they cause more problems than I feel like they're worth. Right now, this light is off, and it was in the off position. Now that you see the green light on, that now is the inverter is in the on position. So what this inverter does is while you are driving down the road and you have no power to your outlets because you don't want to run with your generator, that inverter will allow you to like watch TV or to plug in something into the table and to use your outlets. But the inverter will not allow you to still use the air conditioning or the microwave. It just provides you power to the outlets. So I leave that in the off position, and the biggest reason why is if you forget to turn it off, then the inverter sucks the batteries quickly. So, you know, you could potentially drain the batteries really quickly without knowing. So we do have our generator's operation in here. Our generator is currently running. And it does say underneath here, hold start until the generator starts. So most other RVs, you have to push the stop in order to prime it and then push start in order to start it. This particular one, you just hold start. But before you do that, always make sure the AC is in the off position. So in order to have the AC off, you want it to stay off. And the biggest reason why is because you don't want the generator to have to think about the AC and the generator all at one time. So now that the so you would push start until the generator starts. It could take 10 seconds before it actually goes chugga, 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 zoom, and then it runs solidly. So keep holding that start button until it starts. Then after it starts, you'll notice that the microwave light is on, telling you that you have that 30 amp power. And then you can go ahead and turn the AC on to the on position. Also on this panel, you have the water heater. You just push it on, push it off. It is not a tankless water heater, so it does take about 20 to 30 minutes for that water to get cold. Then you have your water pump, and that light indicates that the water pump is on. So anytime you go to flush the toilet or turn on the water and you notice that there's no water coming out of the faucet or the toilet, the most biggest thing to think about is the water pump on, and you know that because of the light. So looking into the bathroom, this is a typical RV toilet. You'll see right now there is some water at the bottom of the toilet, and that water at the bottom of the toilet is by design. There is no P-trap in the RVs in order to make sure that the smells are not coming from the drain. So that water in the toilet is acting as your P-trap. So right now we know that the tanks are flushed and that they're all emptied out. So anytime you empty out the tanks, you're going to plop one of those orange packets from underneath the sink into the toilet, and you're going to flush the toilet until it goes down. And of course it's not, and you're going to put a little bit of water in there. You don't have to do that anytime you flush the toilet after going to the bathroom, just anytime you empty the tanks. And again, they're underneath that cabinet. There should be ample toilet paper for your trip. It is specific RV friendly toilet paper. It says septic safe or rapid dissolving. If you use anything that's like the cuddly little bear, it's going to clog up your toilets, and that's a very bad thing. In YoYo, they do call this a little bitty bathtub. You'll see that it allows for like 4 inches of water. So if you could imagine, if you had a baby, you could still sit the baby at the bottom of that bathtub and give them a bath. So it is a little bit of a bathtub that makes it a little bit easier than a regular shower. The nozzle in the shower is the same, but there is an on and off button on it. So if for some reason there's no water coming out of the nozzle, then you turn on that button. Again, if the gray tank is full for any reason, it's just not going to go down the drain. Everything else in the bathroom is pretty similar. There is a GFCI you'll see in the bathroom. Sometimes if there's outlets not working, we always like to point out where the GFCI is so that we can, reset that. That's it in the bathroom. So in the bedroom, we do have a TV. There is a hidden compartment behind the TV. There's lots of dresser, lots of place to put clothes. We have other things over here. There's outlets underneath and USBs. Right now we have a lot of pillows in here and lots of storage up above. We have these little cushions in the vents because holy cow, they're like skylights and they provide a lot of hot in here. But if you would like to have some more sunlight, you can take those out. that there is a door, and this just latches, and you'll see it attaches over here on the other side. This goes into that little area to kind of lock it. Then we have the bunk area, and in the bunk area, you'll see that right now the top bunk is in the up position. That allows you an opportunity. There is a rack here that when you lift it up in the proper position, there we go. It actually turns into a large clothes hanger that you can have a lot of place to hang clothes. And then you can put that back up into the up position. Then this bunk latches here and lowers down for that second top bunk. And then you have a couple of drawers underneath your bunk as well. The broom and the Swiffer did attach here, but they don't seem to work so well anymore, and maybe we need to replace these. And what we are finding is while people were operating the slides, they were falling behind the slide here and getting smushed. So anytime you're operating the slides, just be really careful as to what in its way, because we'll show you afterwards. The slide's going to come almost over to here. So you'll see the slide is closing. Anything that's underneath that bed's going to get stuck. If there's a shoe, just watch out. And just go all the way to what the closed position is, and it actually stops. Then the other one, we have the bed. Don't have anybody sitting on the bed or sitting on the couch. Don't make the slide work extra hard. And always make sure, a lot of times people will put the ladder right here, or somebody will lean this driver's side seat really far back. Before you operate the slides, you always want to make sure that nothing is in its way. So you'll see that while you're driving, you do have ample room to kind of walk up and down an aisle. Right now, you do have the extra head space up above. We typically leave that in that position, and you can still get into the bathroom and open the door in order to use the bathroom while you're at the rest stop. So we're almost ready to go. We have the air conditioning on right now, which again, I'm not sure that we need as we're driving down the road. I'm turning off some lights here, just getting ready to pack up and on our way. We have some lights in the hall. I'm going to turn off the air conditioner. We're going to push stop on the generator, and then we're going to make sure that there's no projectile objects anywhere around. So we tend to put the broom and the Swiffer in the bathroom or in the shower so that it, if it flies, it doesn't have that way to fly. Anything that's on the countertops or the tables, you just want to make sure everything is travel ready and is not going to fly if there's some sort of sudden stop. So we're just now finishing up our walkthrough, and what you'll see is right before you check out, we're going to do a walk around of the vehicle, taking pictures every step of the way. I always make sure that my guests take pictures as well, so that we both have documentation of any damages on the RV itself. Then when you keep going down to the side of the RV, we always make sure that cabinets are closed, so they're not going to open as you go down the road. Again, I'm just taking more pictures. Again, this is YoYo. It's a Winnebago Spirit. And thank you for listening. I hope that you got a lot of good information.